Alright guys, Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So I'm just going to get right into it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-Rajim. Okay. So this has been a topic I'm thinking about quite a lot recently. And it's really the idea of unity. And unity in Islam and really how that delineates out to all its aspects. So this short little saying I found online, which I've grown to quite like, is that Islam is affirmation with the heart, utterance with the tongue, and action with the limbs. So first, before you even take the Shahada, you have to be, in your heart, affirmed to be a Muslim. And then once you take the Shahada, everything else is the actions. And this is sort of the core unity of Islam. And Islam demands unity from top to bottom in every single action you will ever take in Islam. From your wudu, from your ghusl, from your salah, from even reading the Quran, from fasting, there has to be a niyyah, there's a unity in every single aspect. And translating that over to our kind of modern state is that we have this concept of Tawheed, Surah Al-Ikhlas, we have this concept embedded into the religion at every level. And one of the lines from the khutbah on the day of Arafah, which is very famous, is that there's different translations, but essentially it's that there's no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab. And of course, you take that to mean that there's no such thing as racism in Islam, and that we're only different in the eyes of Allah on our levels of piety and iman. But another meaning that I've started to think about is that there has to be a unity nationally. And every time we say something like this, and all the uncles will be like, "Oh, mashallah, that was a good talk. We really needed this one." And then you only see Arabs do business with other Arabs. You only see Pakistanis do business with other Pakistanis. You only see Indians do business with other Indians. You'll have rich Arabs who look down on Desis. You'll have Desis who look down on black people. You'll have every group jockeying for a position in the hierarchy, as opposed to this idea of a unity in Islam, of a unified ummah. And I'm just going to simply go over kind of, in Muslim countries, and majority Muslim countries, kind of a result of this more secular or nationalized thinking has gotten us. So in Tajikistan, they've banned hijab in public. I mean, France has done that, which is kind of crazy that we have a country with a large Muslim population doing the same things as a secular Western nation. In Uzbekistan, private religious education is banned, meaning that the only way you can get religious education is publicly, which means that there's this idea of a national conception of Islam, whereby you'll have nations take control of the idea of what it means to be Muslim, to sort of manipulate people into placing the nationality and Islam at roughly the same level, as opposed to Islam, then nationality, then everything else, whatever hierarchy values you have past that. But Islam always has to be on top. So this fragmentation really has destroyed our concept of unity. And this is Islam. Islam is unity. Every action is unity. So in China, I'm sure you've heard about this, but the Uyghurs, 3 million people, re-education camps, forced breaking up of families, not talked about as much as it should be, really. I mean, it's been going on for years. In Dagestan, you think, oh, Dagestan, Khabib, oh, UFC fighters, they temporarily ban the qabs in public. So this is a sunnah, they temporarily ban the qabs. And I mean, Syria's broken into pieces. I mean, Israel's claimed territory, I mean, you know this, it's a complete mess. It is a complete mess. Turkey has been highly secularized for years, You think great Muslim empires, you think Ottoman Empire, now you look at Turkey, it's extremely secularized. There's a trend of countries really viewing Islam not as something transcendental, as something unifying, but as something that you can use as a political tool of control, which is the most backwards way of looking at religion. It's very shameful how we've gotten to this point where you have Saudi Arabia with a lot of the hardcore Salafis. But within that hardcore Salafis, it's not a pure adherence to the Salaf. It's more of a idea of we're gonna have these religious ideas to control. We don't believe in Islam as Islam. We believe in Islam as something to control the people. So you'll have backwards ideas where the scholars of Saudi Arabia are very strict on some things, but then they won't do some things. So we're getting to a very backwards point in the Ummah. And even the idea of me breaking it down country by country really leads into the mistake of feeding into this idea of that we're all separate little independent units. As if this is not the Ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As if we're some broken up. Sheikh Naif mentioned this hadith. Osama, there'll be a time when the Ummah is very numerous, but it'll be like the foam of the ocean. We have no weight, no power, no anything. And so when we talk about this idea of unity, it sounds good, of course. You want to believe you're unified. We want to believe that we're all one happy color, taste the rainbow, whatever. We all want to believe that. And it all sounds good when we're all sat here and we're agreeing with the ideas, except we have no action to follow through. And I am regretting that the audience here is smaller than I would have liked, because I feel like this was more of a topic that could be targeted towards people who are a bit older, people who have a bit more either future potential for economic, social, political power, whatever. But khalas, it's fine. You guys are the future. I'm the same age too, so I'm the future too. I'm the future as well. But in all these criticisms of this really fragmentation that we've led ourselves upon, on one hand, you have to express sympathy to the idea that this is a Mexican standoff of sorts, that the way the global economy has developed, the way that geopolitics has developed, that for basically the first person to lower his gun gets shot. And then that basically means that the first person to think that if I'm going to adhere strictly, if I'm going to establish hudud, if I'm going to establish strict Sharia, not pick and choose Sharia for some things which are convenient to keep people under control, but not convenient for the leaders of the nation, then it seems like we're in a very precarious position. Because you have Afghanistan, once the Taliban established themselves as the rulers of Afghanistan, they had to kind of make alliances with China. But then again, I already previously mentioned that China, within their country, is putting a large Muslim population in camps, re-education, attempting to break down their religious and ethnic identity. But Afghanistan, just because of the game board we have set up, they're kind of forced to pick an alliance, right? Pick the lesser of the two evils. So it's a very precarious position we have. And in terms of solutions, this might be just a more open discussion after this. But in everything, you have to reiterate this idea of unity. Again, Islam is affirmation with the heart. Before you do any action in Islam, what comes first? The niyyah, the intention. It's utterance with the tongue. This is the shahada. This is ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. And this is action with the limbs. But it all has to be complete. You can't just speak something and not mean it. That doesn't count. You can't do something and not mean it. It counts in circumstances, and sometimes it doesn't count in circumstances. But you need everything to get the most barakah out of it. So, in the solution to this, on how we've gotten so broken up, on how we've gotten so obsessed with these really temporal identities, as opposed to anything transcendental. First, you need to be reminded of this idea of unity. And then, really, I mean, this is a really big issue, but I think slowly but surely, this crossing of the paths of that you're not an Indian Muslim, you're a Muslim and then Indian. You're not an Arab Muslim, you're a Muslim and then Arab. You're not a black Muslim, you're a Muslim and then Arab. You're not a white Muslim, you're a Muslim and then white. I think we're already starting to see that a lot more, as opposed to the old guard, which is, your fathers, your grandfathers, your uncles, the older relatives. We're starting to see that dissipate. But it always comes back to this idea of Islam over everything. And nothing exists outside of Islam. There's no such thing as, I'll do this, then this. There's no separation. Everything is unified under the banner of Islam. So, for solutions on how we resurrect ourselves, resurrect our, we went from impressive empires, Umayyads, Ottomans, we went to impressive empires controlling large amounts of land, strong, respected, to now a bunch of goofs, for lack of a better word, with really no political power, no sense of being, no sense of identity outside of the place you were born. It's a strange thing. So I just want to pass it over and see if anyone has any thoughts on just maybe small things, big things, anything that can be done. And just as like another cliff note, is that as I said earlier, it all sounds good when we're talking about unity, when we're talking about this idea. But as for actionables, as Usama mentioned, you see Muslims at school, you're friends with Muslims. I'm being very serious, especially for guys like Wahab or like Raheel, as you're getting to those weird ages where now you're gonna start getting into a lot of stuff. You have to be centered around Muslim friends.
You need your Muslim brothers.
Even if you think the non-Muslim is pious, it still can be pretty dangerous for you to be surrounded completely by them. Because your morals are different from their morals. And you have to recognize that. And even if they're a solid guy, they're trustworthy, they've been good to you, they're not trying to lead you into sin, you have to realize that if they try to lead you down a certain path of drinking, which is pretty acceptable, in the US, their morals are not your morals. You always have to realize this. Their ideals are not your ideals. At the end of the day, they can have your best interest at heart a lot of the times. But you have to realize some of the times they don't. And you always have to have that in the back of your mind. And you have to be grounded by it. You have to be grounded with Muslims.